and welcome to the yearbook training series around hierarchy. I'm Elizabeth Luna, and I am the former yearbook advisor for Athens Drive Magnet High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my focus today is to talk to you about hierarchy on your spreads and how to make your hierarchy stand out so your readers want to stay on your spreads and get your information. We're going to hit on what is hierarchy first. And our first focus is the idea that visual hierarchy is the arrangement of graphic elements in a design in order of importance. It's the reading order of your spread so that an audience member can come to your spread and access the most important information, the second most, the third most, and so on and so on. It's this idea that we attract the reader as a whole to the entire spread, and then we get them to move through all of the pieces and gain all of the content. If you don't do hierarchy right, you end up with two kinds of audiences. Either a confused audience that doesn't understand what's happening, there's too much information, they bounce all around, or you get the moved on audience, the audience that says, hey, there's something that's happening, but it's too hard for me to access, and I'm going to just skip this page. I'm just going to move on. Or I saw this poster on the wall, but it's too hard for me to deal with, so I'm just going to walk right past the poster. And our goal is to not have either of those audiences. We want an audience that's engaged, that wants to be there. So hierarchy in a yearbook spread, we see in two specific ways. We see full spread hierarchy. What's the most dominant elements and how do I get to it? And then how do I move through that spread? And then we see hierarchy showing up inside every individual block. So every single thing that touches or that connects, we see hierarchy being built into that space. And so we're going to look at it in both levels in this presentation. We establish hierarchy by three main things: size, space, and color. Size, how big or small something is going to attract a reader. The space, how much space is between different items, is going to really come into play here and make it so that either the reader wants to look at stuff or doesn't. And then color is going to be this high contrast space that we can use to help draw attention into a space, or even like move attention away from a space potentially. Our last thing that I didn't really mention in the original list is the typefaces, and that's because some people establish typefaces as its own little like way you establish hierarchy, but I would argue that we establish hierarchy inside type the same way we do as we establish it on the spread, using size, space, and color. We're just using different styles or weight, potentially with a typeface also. So you can kind of see typefaces as its own entity to establish hierarchy, or kind of leaving it as being influenced also by size, space, and color. Depends on how you look at it. So let's start by understanding what hierarchy is on a whole spread. And I'm going to kind of talk to you about reading levels really quick. Our goal for a whole spread is to have 3 to 4 reading levels. That means that we are able to move through content at different levels or different moments. We want to create various entry points for the reader and keep readers engaged. If everything jumps out at the reader, what they do is they see it and then they move right on. And so you want to kind of have that intricacy to keep your reader on the spread. The biggest impact on whole spread hierarchy is going to be size, which also impacts space. But the bigger items obviously are going to attract the most attention. They're going to be top level hierarchy. So we're going to see size come into a major factor with whole spread hierarchy. And I like to think of it as kind of this way. We see things from across a room and we're drawn in. So a big picture, a really big headline, something that I can see from far away, it's going to bring me to the group. In a group, somebody's holding this book potentially, and I might look at it, but it's not in my hand. So I'm still 2 to 3 feet in distance from it, and I'm going to get some more information. When I hold it in my hand, I want to deliver the most important content, really, those details. And then if that person's really invested, I want them to have time to look even more closely and gain more. A lot of students would argue that this 4th level, this really closely look, is around captions. So we don't really look at captions until we're holding that book in our hands and we're really invested. We probably moved through all the other content and then we're now left with the captions. So here is probably your most traditional layout of a spread, and we are going to see 3 levels of hierarchy here. And what I want to point out is that Our hierarchy is really seen by blocks of content at whole spread level. So we are not seeing just this one dominant photo where the one is. We are actually seeing the dominant photo with the 4 photos hooked to it. And that's reading as one hierarchy block, top level hierarchy. Our second level of hierarchy here is the body copy and headline. And then third level would be the sidebar, the purple sidebar on the bottom left side. Shawnee Mission Northwest has done a great job here breaking down hierarchy and having the reader move through. Now, we could argue fourth level even comes into play when you look at that little pullout quote on the right side or some of the other graphic details they have on the spread. Here is a newer spread from Athens Drive. It's from the 2023 Now You See Me book, and we actually see the main headline, Rally Round, hooking with the large photo cutout, hooking to the bottom left mod. And so that big block all on the left side actually reads as top level 1. Top level or level 2 is going to be that bottom right mod with the 3 photos, winning moments. And level 3 is going to be your top the top writing copy, the body copy up there, the interview that they have down. And you can actually really test this pretty easily. You shut your eyes and you open them, and what do you see? 1, 2, and 3. Where do you move? And this is how we test it in our room with students. You might want to run it by a few students to see what happens, and you'll find a general consensus as to how things are moving. In this spread, HB Plant has actually made a 2-level design, and that's because all of the things on the left side are touching, and then the bottom right is touching. And so they don't actually have that 3rd level entry point here, which is perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that they don't have hierarchy built into each of these mods. It's just top level. So top level hierarchy is only 2 reading orders right now. And they have done a great job of using this rail of white space to divide the 2 sets of content. So that top level 1 content, and then that bottom mod with the duotone and a calm before the storm, that headline area, you can see it really separated away from the other images. And that's because of that rail of space. So that space is going to be really essential in creating those different levels for you to move through as a reader. And then here, Timber Creek in 2023, also a 2-level spread. The purple bar, it leads the spread entry, and then the black and white photo follows up as level 2. And again, there's hierarchy embedded in part 1. And we're going to kind of go into that plays into the success of the spread, but there is generally speaking 2 levels. So you should be able to kind of separate your spread off into these different sections of entry points. And you can practice this with putting no words on, no hierarchy, except for like blocks of color. So we could have dropped a purple rectangle here and the black and white photo and said, okay, well, does this divide into 2? What way do you read this without having all the extras? So it's just one way to practice. Our goal essentially is that to not make our spread feel like it's screaming or whispering, because if it's screaming or whispering, you have a reading level issue, and that is a hierarchy issue. So you want to make sure that you've got this kind of control of content delivery happening. So if you have a problem, or as you're trying to figure out what is a hierarchy of the spread or how do I shift that, you're looking at some major items, the size of your items, and I'm talking about packages. So let me take this spread, for example. The size of the items is not just the dominant photo, it's the photo attached to the 4 other photos. How big is that item block in comparison to the other 2 item blocks on the page? And so you want that large item block, a medium item block, and a small item block. And this spread just does a really good job of showing you the visual of that big block, medium, and small block. And then thinking about space. So as I mentioned, that rail of space in the HB Plant spread earlier, you want large space entities, large rails to kind of separate the different sections of your spread. This is going to help a reader move through the different pieces. And then after you do those 2 things, color. So applying color with control and purpose can definitely help and impact your reading order. So having things higher in contrast will bring a reader in, lower in contrast will kind of have them separated out or have it less important. So just kind of being mindful of those things. So here's a spread from Athens Drive in 2021. It was one of their early developments, and the big debate was what was wrong with it. It was perfectly fine. It's like a token yearbook spread. It's got that that eye line right across the bottom. What is falling short? And the problem is that we found that every item, every block really felt equal. So when you look at these separated moments on the spread, there was not a dominant piece. It was missing the top level pull in moment to make the reader want to be on the spread. And so what we had to do was rearrange the items to vary the sizes more. And you can see that happening here in this finished spread. And so not only did they mess with internally the hierarchy inside little parts of this spread, they messed with the external hierarchy, the whole spread hierarchy. So you have this larger photo block now in the center that's drawing you into the spread and then leading you to these different mods. 1, 2, and 3. So once you have the whole spread hierarchy established and you understand these big moments, the next step is to get that hierarchy to happen inside each little piece. And this is what's going to start to separate you. A lot of staffs understand top level, but they miss the interior level that's needed. Those details that are really needed to establish your mods is really strong and to help your reader move through. So we're going to think about individual pieces as also needing to have various entry points for a reader. We want to keep readers engaged in the content. Size matters, but more so than anything else in your individual pieces, space, color, and the typeface weights are really going to be important here. And this is how I think about it. We've already convinced you using whole spread hierarchy to hold the book. Now we want you to care enough to look through the information and stay engaged. How do I keep you from being engaged, from stopping to engage? How do I keep you on this spread? And so we're going to look at how you do that, but this is just a great example of different pieces that show a variety of size and color and shape being used to help establish hierarchy and information delivery. And this is the As of Late book for 2024 Athens. So the first thing we do is we look at photo blocks. Photo blocks are going to be the predominant thing in all of your yearbooks. And we know that photo blocks will create various entry points for your reader. And your goal is to kind of circle readers through content, thinking about how large an image is, how it places next to other images, and what can make impact. And just kind of being mindful that action matters. So if for example, this wrestler is looking down to the bottom left package, your eye is going to naturally travel that way. So using the action in photos, if they exist, to help you figure out how to lay out your graphics. So here you go. The large photo is the entry point, and you circle back around through these smaller photos, back to the large photo again. That's going to be your top level photo package developed. In this situation, we're using photo overlap. You can do the same thing with photos just touching. So don't feel like you have to have photo overlap to have this level of hierarchy developed inside your photo block. You can totally do it by having the items next to each other. Just make sure that they are tight. So this is going to be kind of, let me backtrack. This is going to be kind of like your largest kind of to middle size to smaller size. So you can kind of see that variation of size here. But you could also use a photo block that's one really large photo with some small photos next to it, which is what you see here. On the right side, we see that all three supporting photos are kind of equal in size, and they are supporting the main action photo. We're making sure our faces are visible, our emotion is visible, so that readers are really engaged with that large photo, and the small photos are just supporting it. You could decide to do equal sizing photo blocks, which is the football photos on the left side. Keep in mind that this is typically not used as your main block of photos, and that's because it doesn't have the large entry point that you want your main block of photos to have. But this is a great supporting block of photos. It moves you right through as a reader. You come down from the left and then over to the right and down again. And it's just a great way to kind of lay out photos. And then alternatively, another main block of photos could be this larger photo mixed with medium and small. So kind of what you saw in the wrestling spread, this is just another version of that, where we attach these other photos on the top left that are going to carry carry the reader through these other details. So just kind of thinking about hierarchy inside your photo blocks. If everything is equal, they're great supporting photos, but you need to have big and small or medium and small attached to your main photo to really build that entry photo block onto your spread. And once you've established your photo blocks, you're going to move into kind of looking at your mods in more detail. And when I say mods or sidebars, I'm talking about your headshots, your interesting statistic mods, your sidebars that you might see here called Giving Back to School on the left side, the At the Show up here on the left, the Pause for Purpose on the bottom right. So these are your sidebars. They're not just photo blocks. They have something else happening in them, whether it's quotes or a specific type of content or something. It's not just photo and captions. And before we move kind of into that, I'm going to make sure that you have established some basic rules. So you've established what fonts are being used and how they're being applied. So what font is making up a headline, what font's making up body copy, and then what sizes those fonts are being used at. So we want to establish those in advance before we move into working with the sidebars, because that's going to build some basic hierarchy. If captions are 6.5 in size and body copy is 9 point in size, then you have an established hierarchy already, because body copy is larger than captions. So you want to think about those rules and establish them before you move into your sidebar development. And the other thing you want to establish is, what is your color scheme? What colors are you using on your spread? How many colors are you using on your spread before you kind of jump into this stage? And just in a quick note, when we're looking at sidebars, we are taking space into account, but it's going to be around the fact that we need our sidebars to be tighter. They should not float. So in the top here, you see kind of increased spacing between items, which kind of leaves everything separated, versus the bottom, which is tighter. So just be really mindful that your packages should feel tight in connection. So here's a quote mod example, and I'm going to quickly run through how we establish hierarchy. So in this situation, we already have, we've decided that we want gridded. We're trying to compact 7 quotes into a smaller space. So we got rid of the idea of the headshot and just put the quote in. We did call out the name already because the name is slightly bigger than the caption quote copy, but otherwise we don't really have any hierarchy established. And so we're going to play with this to help communication become stronger by increasing hierarchy. And so in this situation, we chose to stack the headline. So standout conversations is one line here. Now it's stacked. And you can see standout is smaller than conversations, which is larger. So we've established some hierarchy inside the headline. We also have decided that our names, though bigger, need to be more prominent still, and so we made them bold. And we also, it looks like our callouts, our identifiers, social studies, magnet coordinator, sophomore, those words are slightly bigger than our quote content. So there's a little bit of a separation happening right now. But we're going to keep working on it. And so in this situation, we decided to switch everything to all caps. So now our names are bold and all caps. Our identifiers are slightly bigger than our quotes and all caps. Those stacking moments mirror how we dealt with the headline also. So it's kind of carrying our headline rule into our name stacking rule. And we create this kind of tiered sequence of information. So we have the name as the most important, the identifier as the second most important, and then the quote as the third most important. And that was a hierarchy decision we made because we felt like students' names are the most important thing. It's what they're looking for. So we want to make sure those stood out. And we can pop this one more. So we are content with this. We felt like it had good hierarchy, but we can use color to get it to the next level. And so now we add these color bars, and you can see that we actually even tinted the color bar between the two sets of bars we're using so that the headline has more prominence than the names themselves. So the names are going to fall under the conversation's word because of the lesser tint of the color. And from this, we have to make some rules. Okay, that's what's most important. Once you make the mod and you're happy with it, you make rules around it that you can carry into other mods. And you can see those rules play out here. And so this is a example from that same book. The students used all the rules that they established in that mod development, and they built it into all of these other spots. There's some slight variation here or there to help the spread come alive and create some hierarchy, but you can see the consistent carrying of the different stacking methods, the different hierarchy methods that they established. And it's really because of those rules. So you want to build something you can be proud of, and then make the rules, and then build something using those rules so that you have some variety. You can't have everything the same. Okay, one more example. So here's an information mod. We already have subhead and side copy established, and we already know what our font choice is. And our students had an idea. They wanted to represent data in circles, and so they made this. And we analyzed the results of it. We said, it doesn't make sense that all the circles are equal. I don't know what's most important. We think that we need some variation to help their audience know what to look at. And so we shifted it. And so here we look at the size change. So we shifted the circle size. We also shifted the coloring. And you'll see that we are working in grayscale. We do that purposely because color itself can affect hierarchy. And so we didn't want our colors to come into play here. We wanted to make sure our design was strong in black and white or gray. And so here we can see the dominance in the darkest color, the size of the 48% now being much larger than the other content. So I'm more interested in looking at it. We've shifted the spacing. It's unequal. So here the spacing is all equal. Now we've shifted the spacing. We've narrowed the overall design. And we are still working to separate information, but we feel much better about the hierarchy here. There's a difference between the percentage and the age information. There's a good relationship between that and the sidebar content that's explaining the statistics. And so all of that is working much stronger here. So we keep editing this and we can start to add color now because we feel good about the hierarchy. And so you can see the color play in. And so we start to add those shifts in color. And now we have this kind of look where, as a reader, I know 48% ages 18 to 22 is the most important thing. It's what I need to be looking at. And that is what we're really talking about in this sidebar content. And then from here, we are going to create some rules, and then we're going to carry those rules into other things. So what we did was we said that we're going to have a consistent headline. Okay, consistent headline that we are going to have, we're going to keep our colors minimal. We are going to have this kind of zigzag. Things aren't going to be equal all the time. Things aren't going to be straight in line. We made all caps headers. We have caption size explanation. We have a tight lockup, and we carry that into 2 other plays. Now you'll see some of the rules shift a little bit based on the type of content we're delivering, because all the content changes a little bit, but you can see the idea of that kind of zigzagging numbers happening. We have all caps descriptor titles for the description copy underneath it, which mirrors that idea of social media addiction rates and that copy. And so you can kind of see that those rules start to play out in these designs. And that's what you want. You want to build something you're proud of, create the rules for it, and then apply it. And if you do it right, then you can create some amazing infographic pages because you have these awesome sidebars that are operating all with the same types of rules and sizing. And that hierarchy is so strong, you can put them all on a page together and it will attract the reader, pull them in, and keep them there. Because as a reader, I understand what the rules are to reading through my content. I can get into all of the little pieces and I can find the information I am invested in or that I'm interested in reading about. And so that's what's so important, is that you really make those rules as you establish your hierarchy and you carry them in possibly some different ways, but you're carrying them throughout every piece. So kind of in summary, we want to decide what's important. That's the most important thing. What is the most important thing on your spread? What do you want people to read? Adjust the size, space, and color around it to accommodate that reading order of how you want people to get the information. Check it with multiple people. It will always read how you want it to read because you built it. So you need to give it to other people that aren't invested in it to find out if what you want exists. Is your reading order make sense? Do other people have the same relationship with the content as you do? Or do you need to make more shifts? You can't identify that yourself. You have to use other people to support you. Once you have it established, you're going to make a rule around it. And then you're going to repeat it in some way or another, repeat it throughout your design so that your book is connected from front to back. And that's it. That's all it's going to take. And you're going to have an amazing book that's going to stand out among your books as one of the strongest in information delivery, in hierarchy, and engagement.